Morning, children. For the last two classes, we are learning the lesson Evans tries an O level, where James Roderick Evans in the prison expresses the desire of getting the academic qualification, where he wants to write O level German examination. The only problem with the governor is that Evans has escaped thrice from the prison, and this time still he has made arrangements for Evans to write the O level examination. Still, he knows that it might be possible that this was his escape plan. He appoints two officers, Mr. Stephens and Mr. Jackson. Mr. Stephens was a burly, surly looking man and newly recruited to the profession and to the D wing in the Oxford prison, while Mr. Jackson was an old, experienced, and mature officer, but he was a bitter enemy of Evans. Then there was another person about whom we are going to read today, the important character McCleary, who was a parson and who had been appointed in agreement of the governor and the secretary of the board, so that there is no problem in keeping him incommunicado. On page number 73, children, we had read that Jackson was very upset about the way Evans was behaving, and he wanted him to remove even the dirty hat from his head. But Evans was not ready to do so. So, on page number 74, it begins like this: just this once, then Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple is a Hollywood actress. Here, Evans is being compared to Shirley Temple because she also has long wavy hair, and Evans liked to keep long hair for himself. So, if there was one thing that Jackson genuinely loathed, hated about Evans, it was his long wavy hair. So, Mr. Jackson calls Evans Shirley Temple and gets shaving. So, Jackson instructs him, Evans, that at least he should get clean shaved. At 8:45 the same morning, the Reverend Stuart McCleary left his bachelor flat in Broad Street and stepped out briskly towards Carfax. The weatherman reported temperatures considerably below the normal for early June, and a long black overcoat and a shallow crowned clerical hat provided a welcome protection from the steady drizzle which had set in half an hour earlier, which now spattered the thick lenses of his spectacles. In his right hand he was carrying a small brown suitcase, which contained all that he would need for his morning duties, including a sealed question paper envelope, a yellow invigilation form, a special authentication card from examination board, a paper knife, a Bible. He was to speak to the Women's Guild that afternoon on the Book of Ruth and current copy of the Church Times. So, children, the time of moving out of McCleary from his flat is given, that is 8:45. And he was carrying with him the suitcase. He was wearing the long overcoat to save himself from the drizzling. He was wearing spectacles. The 2-hour examination was scheduled to start at 9:15 a.m. So half an hour he was taking to come to the prison house. Evans was lathering his face vigorously when Stephens brought in two small square tables and set them opposite each other in the narrow space between the bunk on one side and on the other a distempered stone wall. So Evans was preparing for getting his beard removed, for getting shaved, and therefore he was covering his face with lather, that is cream. Then the arrangements were made for the examination. Two tables were brought, and one was placed in front, and the other, that was a battered one, that was placed opposite to the table that was kept for McCleary, which stood near the cell door. Jackson put in a brief final appearance. So, last warning Jackson is giving to Evans. Behave yourself, laddie. Laddie's boy. Evans turned and nodded. And these, Jackson pointed to the pin-ups. Pin-ups, children, are the pictures that Evans must have put on the wall for himself. Off. So Evans was instructed to remove those pictures that were hung on the wall in the cell. Evans turned and nodded. I was going to take them down anyway. A minister, isn't he? The chap coming to sit in, I mean. So Evans knows that the parson was coming to invigilate the examination. And how did you know that? Asked Jackson quietly. Well, I had to sign some forms, didn't I? And I couldn't help. So, children, when the students who are writing the examination, they know about the invigilator, then they try to tempt the invigilator. In this case, whether Evans was successful in doing so, or how does he take advantage of this information that the parson was coming from St. Mary's Max Church to invigilate, that we are going to read for in the further part of the story. So he says that he had to sign some forms, and there he had read the name of the parson. Evans drew the razor carefully down his left cheek and left a neat swath in the white lather. Can I ask you something, Mr. Jackson? Why did they have to bug me in this cell? So he was very surprised that he was bugged in his own cell. Means there was something to observe him or to see him. So to bug means, children, to fix a small hidden device for listening to the other people's conversation. So now here Mr. Jackson is also surprised. Why? Because that recording instrument was placed at a place that was clearly visible. Now, children, you need to understand this, that if you have to record somebody and if you want to find out what the conversation is or what the person is speaking, then you will have to hide the instrument. Otherwise, whatever you want to listen, you will not be successful at. And therefore, it was not a neat job according to Jackson. So he says, not a very neat job, conceded Jackson. So he spoke that it was not neatly done up because it was clearly visible. The recording instrument was clearly visible. They are not. They don't. Honestly, I think I'm going to try to, Evans said. So Evans said that was the governor or anybody else in the prison thinking that he would escape from there? They are taking no chances, Evans. Nobody in his senses would take any chances with you. Who is going to listen in? Evans asked to Mr. Jackson. I will tell you who is going to listen in, laddie. It's the governor himself. See, he don't trust you a bloody inch, nor do I. I will be watching you like a hawk. Simile is used here, children, to suggest that without blinking eye, Mr. Jackson would look at it that the things go on properly. The things are done up properly. Evans write the examination honestly and doesn't escape from there. Evans, so keep your nose clean. Clean means clear. So have you understood that you are warned that you don't have to try to escape? He walked towards the door. Evans nodded. He had already thought of that. Means how to make an escape, how to do and what to do, that he had already thought about. And number 2, handkerchief was lying ready on the bunk. There was a neatly folded square of off-white linen. The handkerchief was kept. That was number 2 part of the plan. Now, what was number 1 that we have already read about? So, you can yourself understand what is it. Just one more thing, Einstein. Yeah, what's that? Good luck, old son. In the little lodge just inside the prison's main gate, the Reverend S. McClary signed his name neatly in the visitor's book and thence walked side by side with a silent prison officer across the exercise yard to D Wing, where he was greeted by Jackson. The wing's heavy outer door was unlocked and locked behind them, the heavy inner door the same, and McClary was handed into Stephen's keeping. So there were 3 doors from the main gate to the D Wing's door, and McClary was accompanied with a silent prison officer, and the silent prison officer handed McClary to Stephen's keeping. Get the razor, murmured Jackson. Stephens nodded. Well, keep your eyes tint clear. So you have to be very watchful. Stephens nodded again, and McClary, his feet clanching up the iron stairs. So McClary's coming up, followed his new guide, and finally stood before a cell door. The new guide was Mr. Stephens, where Stephens opened the peephole and looked through. That's him, sir. Stephens pointed out towards Evans. Evans, facing the door, sat quietly at the farther of the 2 tables, his whole attention riveted to the textbook of elementary German grammar. So, riveted here, completely focused. So, Evans was focusing on the German grammar. Stephens took the key from its ring, and cell lock sprang back with a thudded metallic twang. Thudded metallic twang is to make a sound like a tight wire or string being pulled and released. So there was a metallic door. So when it was opened and it was closed, it was a huge noise that was created because of the metallic twang.